Raven's Hollow was a town wrapped in shadows and secrets. Nestled deep in a valley where the mist never fully lifted, it was a place where the past clung tightly to the present. The townsfolk spoke in hushed tones about the curse, a dark force that had haunted Raven's Hollow for generations. Every full moon, a raven would appear, its black feathers gleaming like spilled ink against the silver light. Its call was a warning, a harbinger of the terror to come. On those nights, people vanished without a trace, and the town was gripped by fear. When Claire, a determined journalist from the city, arrived to investigate the curse, she was met with suspicion and silence. But the deeper she dug, the more she realized that the curse was real, and that the raven was only the beginning. Claire's car wound down the narrow, fog-shrouded road leading into Raven's Hollow. The town appeared suddenly, like a ghost rising from the mist, a cluster of weathered buildings, their windows dark and empty. She parked near the town square, stepping out into the cold air. The silence was thick, broken only by the distant caw of a raven perched high in a gnarled tree. Claire pulled her coat tighter around her and approached the nearest building, the local inn. Inside, the few patrons glanced up briefly before returning to their drinks, their eyes wary. "Evening," Claire said, forcing a smile. "I'm Claire. I'm here to learn about the curse." A grizzled man at the bar snorted. "Curse? You city folk don't know what you're messing with." Claire met his gaze steadily. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I just want to understand." The bartender, a woman with tired eyes, nodded slowly. "If you're staying the night, be careful when the moon rises. The raven watches." Claire's curiosity deepened. "What happens when the raven watches?" The bartender's voice dropped to a whisper. "People disappear every full moon. No one knows where they go. No one dares follow." Claire's fingers tightened around her notebook. "I'm going to find out." Claire settled into her room at the inn, the wooden floor creaking beneath her feet as she unpacked. Outside, the fog thickened, curling around the town like a living thing. The full moon was rising, its pale light filtering through the cracked window. She sat by the window, notebook in hand, jotting down the stories she'd heard, whispers of the raven, disappearances, and a curse that had lasted for centuries. The townsfolk's fear was palpable, but no one would speak openly about the source. A sudden caw shattered the silence. Claire looked up to see a large raven perched on the windowsill, its black eyes gleaming in the moonlight. Her heart quickened. The bird tilted its head as if studying her, then took flight into the night. Claire grabbed her coat and flashlight. She had to see where it went. Stepping outside, the cold night air bit at her skin. The town was eerily quiet, the fog muffling every sound. She followed the raven's silhouette as it glided silently through the streets, leading her toward the edge of the forest that bordered Raven's Hollow. The raven landed on a twisted branch overlooking a small clearing. Claire approached cautiously, her flashlight beam cutting through the mist. In the center of the clearing stood an ancient stone altar, covered in moss and strange carvings. The air was thick with an unsettling energy. Suddenly, the raven cawed again, louder this time, and from the shadows emerged a figure cloaked in black, face hidden beneath a hood. "Who are you?" Claire demanded, her voice steady despite the fear rising in her chest. The figure said nothing, but raised a hand, revealing a talisman shaped like a raven's claw. Claire's breath caught. This was no ordinary person. Before she could react, the figure vanished into the mist, leaving behind a faint whisper. The curse is not broken. It must be ended. Claire stood alone in the clearing, the weight of the curse pressing down on her. She knew her investigation had just begun. The next morning, Claire awoke with a pounding headache and a restless mind. The encounter in the clearing haunted her thoughts. The cloaked figure, the raven talisman, and the whispered warning. She knew she had stumbled onto something far darker than she had imagined. Determined to uncover the truth, Claire headed to the town's small library. The building was old, its wooden shelves sagging under the weight of dusty books and brittle papers. The librarian, an elderly woman named Agnes, eyed Claire warily, but eventually led her to a section filled with local history. Claire spent hours poring over records, old newspapers, and faded journals. She discovered that Raven's Hollow had once been a thriving settlement, but tragedy had struck generations ago. A series of mysterious disappearances had begun shortly after a wealthy family, the Ravenscrofts, moved into the manor on the hill. The Ravenscrofts were rumored to have dabbled in dark rituals, seeking power through forbidden means. The townsfolk whispered that the family had made a pact with a dark entity, a raven spirit that demanded sacrifices in exchange for protection and prosperity. Claire's fingers trembled as she read an old diary entry from a Ravenscroft daughter. The raven watches us always. It demands its due. We live in fear, bound by the curse our ancestors brought upon us. As the sun dipped low, Claire closed the book and looked out the window. The fog was rolling in again, thick and suffocating. She knew the curse was real, and that the raven was its enforcer. That night, Claire returned to the clearing, hoping to find answers. The moon was full, casting an eerie glow over the altar. She placed a small candle on the stone and whispered a prayer for the lost souls of Raven's Hollow. Suddenly, the raven appeared again, its eyes gleaming with unnatural intelligence. It cawed sharply, then took flight toward the manor on the hill. Claire's heart raced. The manor was the key. She had to confront the darkness at its source before the next full moon claimed another victim. The raven's watch had ended. The morning sun spilled over the hills surrounding Raven's Hollow, casting warm light on a town that seemed transformed. The heavy fog that had clung to the streets for generations was gone, replaced by a clear, crisp air that carried the scent of pine and earth. Claire stepped outside the manor, her body weary but her spirit unburdened. The oppressive weight that had hung over the town was lifted, replaced by a fragile hope. Villagers emerged from their homes, blinking against the sunlight, their faces marked by years of fear, but now softened by relief. Children played in the streets, their laughter ringing out like a balm to the soul. Old Tom, the village elder, approached Claire with a slow smile. "You've done what none of us could. The curse is broken." Claire shook her head gently. It wasn't just me. It was all of us, facing the darkness together. As she walked through the town square, she noticed ravens perched quietly on rooftops and trees. But their eyes were no longer menacing. They seemed watchful, protective even. The raven's curse had ended, but its legacy remained, a reminder of the power of courage, sacrifice, and the light that can break even the darkest shadows. Claire looked up at the sky, the sun rising higher, and whispered, "Rest now, Raven's Hollow. You're free."